listening to Who's Tom and Dick, a weekly podcast with your hosts, Martin Weavers, fighting stage 4 lung cancer, and Patrick Mortimer, living with heart disease. Why not grab yourself a cup of coffee, sit back, and enjoy the chatter as we discuss and share information, talking about tough subjects, and offering help, support, and motivation with a positive mental attitude.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Who's Tom and Dick on this lovely Friday morning. And we're here in the Angel Hotel this week, Martin.
Lovely surroundings,
Out
isn't it?
on the road again, and we've got a special guest who I want to introduce, if you don't mind.
Hold on. I thought I was going to introduce him.
No, I'm going to introduce you.
Well, no, I thought it's my turn this week.
There's only one way to sort this out.
Oh dear, come on, guys. It's funny how that has persisted, that fight thing, isn't it? You can't resist it if you hear
We
there's
hoped
only one
you
way
was
to
going to
find
say
out.
it, Harry. So on three, we want 1, 2, 3.
Fight!
You only used it once last night in your show, didn't you?
I did use it, yeah. Well, it's a funny thing with a catchphrase that people know is that as I go into it, as I say, I do this thing that I pick on a couple of people and say, I like you and I like you. But I know, as soon as I say, they kind of get where it's going to go.
Yeah.
People get a bit excited. It's weird, really.
My wife and I still do this when we're talking things at home because we love the burp. We really, really love. We'll talk about that a little bit later, won't we?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's funny.
I thought it was quite good value, your show, actually.
Quite good value.
Quite good value. Sorry, very good value, because the last time I come to see a doctor, it cost me 150 quid.
Yeah.
So you've been rehearsing that joke all night, haven't you?
Yeah.
Does it show?
I wouldn't open with it.
No. No.
So, yeah, okay, well, can you take us back to the beginning, Harry? Obviously, we know, but all our listeners probably don't know that you used to be a doctor.
Oh, yeah, the very beginning, or the beginning of...
Well, the beginning where you want to go back to.
Oh, okay. Well, I was born in 1964 in a hospital in Woking.
Yeah.
I mean, with the whole doctor thing.
Yeah, I think, rather than the schoolwork and things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And where you got to.
It's boring, all that stuff. Yeah, I got into...
And how long it took you to become a doctor?
Yeah, I got into medicine, really, fellas, because when I was a kid... I used to like, remember in the 70s, you used to be able to get chemistry set.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And I had a chemistry set, and I liked playing with matches, and I was trying to make explosions.
Check his pockets.
So I had the chemistry set as a kind of cover for this sort of amateur arsonist that I was. Me and my friend used to make these sort of fireworks and stuff, and because I did that, my parents sort of thought I was interested in science. I mean, I was kind of interested in science. Before I knew it, I'm training to be a doctor. So it was kind of, it's a funny thing. I mean, it was really hard to get into medical school. Yeah. I'm sure it still is. And I had to work really, really hard to get there. And actually, when I was there, it was really, really loads of stuff the first 2 years, all bookwork, science and physiology and, anatomy, just dissecting human bodies and stuff. And then, but as I actually I quite enjoyed that course. It's an interesting course, especially when you get on the wards, because you see people who are kind of, you give good news, you give bad news, you deliver babies, you do all sorts of, it's pretty dramatic stuff. But the difference between being a doctor and being a student is you don't have any responsibility as a student. So you're kind of a spectator, although you're doing stuff, taking blood and then when I qualified, started work, first job, it was the orthopaedic ward at Kingston Hospital. And I hadn't really gone in to do much orthopedics as a student. Because you didn't really need to. It was one of those things you didn't really get tested on. Everyone knew you didn't really get tested on it. And I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
Oh.
Yeah, so I was going around the ward, and this guy goes to me. So there's a guy there with his leg in a plaster, I remember. He said to me, doctor, he goes, and I'm sort of looking around thinking, who does he mean?
He's talking to.
I'm in my white coat with a, he says, how long will I have to be in the plaster for? And I had no idea. And I said to him, well, how long did the other doctor say? And he said 6 weeks. And I said, well, how long have you had it in the plaster? He said 4 weeks. I said, well, I think probably about 2 weeks. But in those days, doctors, you could do anything and people would just take it, right? If a doctor told you to stop doing that or do this or whatever, you were kind of venerated
Yeah.
You know, like when you were in the white coat and you were walking down the hospital corridor, people would go, "Oh, look, there's the doctor." It's all kind of, and I think that's perhaps changed a bit.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answered your question, but yeah, it was fun. But in the 90s when I qualified, it was those long hours. I mean, I know doctors still do long hours, but this was kind of just crazy hours.
Yeah.
So I would start work Friday morning, finish Monday evening.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Do you enjoy it?
Not really.
No.
No, I was kind of out of my depth.
Right.
And it's funny because people say to you, do you get nervous when you're going on, as a comic? And I'd get a bit nervous, but nowhere near as nervous as I used to get when I was on call.
Really?
Yeah, I'd start work in the morning. I thought, oh, Christ, what's coming through the door?
Yeah.
Someone with a heart attack, You remember during the ambulance strike? Remember that years ago?
Yeah.
And all the police were covering.
Yeah.
Right? Ridiculous, really. So and I remember this, we had this emergency call saying, oh, yeah, there's going to be a young girl brought in, she's got an asthma attack, really ill. And it was a police van, turned up the back of the van open. Yeah. And there was a policeman basically just holding this girl in his arms. Right? Completely, didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So it was a bit, it was interesting. It was really interesting. And, I learned a lot. And the main thing I learned pretty much on day one is life is short.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've got to make the most of it. And actually, informed with that information, it took me a couple of years to pluck up the courage. But I thought, actually, I ought to just give it a go. So actually what I thought was I'd take a year off. That's what I told my mum.
Right. And how did she take it?
Well, she was anxious, it's a tough one. You tried telling your mum you want to stop being a doctor and be a comedian.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't need her permission. And actually, the other lesson is your parents just want you to be happy, don't they?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So, it was, so a year turned into, 2 years, and then I never went back to it, really.
Is it right you was going to go back after the pandemic?
Well, he called me back, yeah.
Yeah.
For some reason, I kept, kind of sentimental reason, I kept on the medical register, right? And, I had to pay you. I mean, in the old days, you used to you pay the GMC subscription, which meant you could still write prescriptions, right? So I would get comics phoning me up and saying I've got a bit of a rash. And I would write them a prescription.
It's my joke gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd write them a prescription for something. It was a bit naughty, but... and then they changed...
now this is going all over the world, Harry. You've done this.
And then they changed all that. You had to keep up to date with the... very unfair, you have to keep up to date with all the latest medical...
Bloody rules.
Rules and regulations. So, But I kept paying the sub. It was still on the register. And then when the pandemic thing happened, all right, then they said, oh, you got to be retired, which is like, you only had to pay 100 quid or something. And then when the pandemic happened, there was this, you remember when I'm sure you do, the first thing was we didn't know what the hell was happening, did we?
No.
We didn't know if it was, where it was going, particularly guys of our age.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you particularly, you all thought we were going to, we were going to be a goner.
Yeah.
And actually, there was a thing.
Why me particularly? He's looking at me thinking I'm an old croaky. I didn't have the cancer then.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I was the lead singer of the Basic Rollers and Benidorm at the time.
But I am inclined to agree with him.
Yeah. But actually, there was a statistic that said that bald men were more susceptible. Did you see that?
No, I didn't.
Yes, they were more likely to die if you got COVID. Obviously, it was over 55, but if you were bald, it's a weird thing.
Yeah.
I don't know what that was. Maybe it's just over 55-year-old men are more, you get more bald people. But anyway, so I get this email saying, do you want to come back? Because we might be short a doctor. Do you remember So I thought, oh no, I can't do this. But it was like that thing of, what can you do for the country? And so it's like feeling of, and I'd had about 2 gin and tonics. And I pressed this, it's like a fill out a form, right?
Yeah.
I sent it off. So I woke up the next day thinking, oh God, what have I done? And then I get a phone call from this lady, Dawn, from the London Workforce Hub, saying, I'm calling you about your return to work. I thought, Jesus, really?
Were you actually registered as Dr. Harry Hill?
That's not my real name.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it wasn't. Yeah. So
no, so she didn't know, right?
No.
And it's just a phone call, right? And I'm sort of backtracking.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying to her, "Oh well, it's a long time ago, so I haven't worked for 30 odd years." She said, "That's not a problem." Right? She said, "What did you do? What was your speciality?" I said, "Well, I didn't really." I said, "You know what? I used to work in sort of, I was a general physician, respiratory." She said, "Oh, that's good." She said, "Yeah, respiratory is good." I was thinking, well, and then at the end of the call, she said, "Could you start work on Monday at the Nightingale, XL Nightingale, that massive hospital there in Stratford East?" And I said, "Oh, well," I said, "I'm South London, so it would be a bit difficult for me to get there." She said, "Well, okay, look, I'm going to FaceTime you now, and you can hold up a copy of your passport so I can verify it's you." And I thought, here we go. She'll recognise it's me.
Yeah.
The heat's off, we'll have a laugh about it. Unfortunately, I'd grown a sort of COVID beard.
Yeah.
And she didn't recognise. Dawn was in her sort of late 60s and didn't seem to be a natural ITV viewer. And I got, and I was really anxious. I thought, any minute there's a car's going to turn up and take me to, and they sent me a whole load of stuff to get back up to speed, right? All these tutorials and stuff. So I thought, I'll do one. I did one. It took me about an hour to do it. And then I look how many there are. There's like 400.
Oh, wow.
So actually, but then in the end, of course, they never really used that hospital. It was, everyone washed their hands and behaved themselves. Well, not everyone, but we won't go into that.
Can you imagine that you come round from a coma and Harry Hill is over your bedside?
Yeah. That's when you know you're in trouble.
Less morphine, nurse, less morphine. Brilliant.
Yeah, so it was it was a lucky escape for the nation.
Yeah. Characters in your show. Blue Cat.
Oh, Stuffer, yeah.
It's Stuffer.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it's quite an obscure character, that. I mean, that's from my old Channel 4 show in the late 90s.
Yeah, I was surprised to see that last night, actually.
Yeah,
I haven't seen that for a while.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't have any idea what that is.
No.
But the funny thing is, over the years, I've tried to sort of merch at gigs, and the only thing really that sells is rubber Stufers.
Ah, right.
Yeah, weirdly. And so that it's a small but loyal fan base for that cat. Yeah.
So $64 million question is, when did you decide to go into comedy? Well, you've just described that you took a year out. Had you always got comedy in your mind as you're going through your training?
Yeah, because I was really into comedy in a way that some people are into music. So I was really interested in comedy as a kid.
Yeah,
and I was always one of those kids with the jokes. In the playground. I don't know if it happens now. Kids exchange jokes, do they? Perhaps you never hear any sort of
no.
There used to be those jokes that used to circulate. I suppose it's a bit like memes now, isn't it? You get on, social media and stuff. I guess that's the equivalent, but it would be, I don't know. It was a lot of Irish jokes in the 70s, stuff like that. And I would remember these jokes, and I was aware that if you could tell jokes, it gave you a certain power. If you made people laugh. And I was in the Cub Panto when I was 9. It was Widow Twankey and Aladdin. And everyone was sort of laughing at things I was doing. And I thought, oh, this is, And it was like, I felt like it was an easy thing to do. You know what I mean? Like some things you find are hard to do, but, I thought, oh, this would be great, if you could do this. Maybe not quite as consciously when I was 9, but then I couldn't really work out how the hell you could be a comedian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, how did you two get into it?
Pat's still trying to find out.
Well, you came through magic, right?
I come through magic.
Yeah, that's one route. There was a kind of, some people got into it through music, Billy Connolly got into it with the folk, and Jasper Carrott. But I couldn't see anyway. I would follow these guys. You couldn't really find out about, now you could just Google, I don't know, Tommy Cooper, Bruce Forsyth. Whatever. It seems to me, I'd get their autobiographies from the library. And it seemed to me they were all involved in the Second World War.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, what we need is a war.
Yeah.
What I need is a Third World War. and then I can get, in the whatever it was, Ensa or whatever. It was like I couldn't see how you do it, and all you'd see people like Les Dawson would be the Northern Working Men's Clubs, which there weren't any in Kent.
No,
so so I thought, I just it just seemed an impossible prospect. But then when I became a medical student, of course, it was the kind of alternative comedy circuit.
Yeah.
Every pub had a club above it where, you could go and see Lee Evans and Jack D and people, and you could be, this far away from them.
Yeah.
And it seemed like, oh, that's possible. You could walk 2 yards and be on stage.
Yeah.
So basically that's how it came about.
Yeah.
So what made you go into the, the observational and the character, with the characters and all things like that, rather than just stand up?
I don't know, really. It's just like, I suppose that most of those sort of, I haven't got a lot of, I don't have a lot of characters, really. It's sort of just stuff that's kind of floated to the top, I suppose. Most of that came from the TV work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once you go on TV, you've got to fill it. You can't do your act. You can't get anywhere if you try doing your act. You can get a break doing your 5 minutes, or in the old days it used to be live DVDs and stuff. But you just can't keep up with the turnover.
No.
Of gags.
Griff was telling us last week, wasn't he, that Morecambe and Wise was still doing their stage act.
Yeah, they only had one act, live act.
Years later.
Because they never did it on TV.
No.
They preserved it.
Yeah, we saw that as an old film, wasn't it? And we did watch it to copy a bit of it.
Fairfield Halls.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah,
that's the one. Yeah,
but they weren't writers.
No,
they didn't write their own stuff really. I suppose I'm sure they embellished it and added stuff to it. But that was kind of the difference with the sort of alternative lot, was that they were writing their own stuff.
Yeah.
But I always think of it as Elvis and the Beatles. Elvis was basically at the mercy of the songwriters, as brilliant a singer as he was. But then the Beatles were writing their own gear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is probably why they...
Because in that Fairfield Hall one, there was a puppet sketch, wasn't there? When they had
brilliant.
Yeah, and we adapted that a little bit for us. And we went on Pot of Gold with Des O'Connor.
I don't remember that. What was that?
It was a talent show on TV, and
Pot of Gold.
You were a wannabe for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
They picked 5 acts, and the 6th act was picked from the wannabes. So we all did 30 seconds or so, and then the audience voted for who they thought was the best. Every year, there was 2 acts went through from the wannabes. The year we did it, only 1, and we come second. So, but anyway, we all
on
had to
TV.
show...
What
yeah.
It
went out at prime time.
7:30.
Yeah. In 95, something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Pot of Gold.
Yeah. What was I going to say about it?
About the puppet show.
Oh, yeah, the puppet show. So we had to do the, in front of the producer, if we got through, what we'd do in the full 3 minutes. So we did the puppet show.
Yeah.
And he looked and he said, that was fantastic, boy. He said, very much like Eric and Ernie.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And I thought, I wonder if he knew. And
that puppet's just been sold, hasn't it?
Has it?
They just had an auction of all Eric's old stuff because his wife died. And so
yes. Right, yeah.
I think basically Gary Morecambe was clearing the house.
Yeah.
And that puppet sold for 60 grand or something. Like ridiculous.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I love ventriloquist puppet. I've got one in my...
Yes, we know. We know. Gary. Yes.
And I love that kind of tradition of... a lot of my act is quite old-fashioned in some ways, just sort of... but yeah, I love those guys, yeah. That puppet of mine is from the 1930s.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah.
So he's nearly 100 years old.
Cracking.
His head,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Apart from drugs, where do you get the inspiration for your show?
Yeah, I never took drugs.
No.
No one ever offered me
prescribe them to yourself.
That's not kind of... I've no idea. It's just like sitting trying to think of ideas, That's it, really. You kind of... Sometimes you're wandering around and you see something and that is the start of a joke. But,
Do you carry a pad around with you and think, oh...
Yeah, I do, yeah. I've got it in my pocket.
So if we say anything funny, he's going to write this down.
Let's see what I've got. So I write down stuff and most of it is just rubbish. But every now and then you might get... So I've written down here 32-inch telly. And so I was thinking, I ordered a 32-inch telly, but what happened was I ordered 32-inch tellies. chinchilla roll neck. Oh yeah, that's something about it's something about a roll neck made out of rodent fur. And Gary, isn't that right? Jokes for Gary.
Yeah.
And he says, and I say chinchilla. He said, no, it went all up, passing up right up to my, Yeah, but then there'll be other stuff which is just like, just random words. So I don't know. I mean, a lot of, as you know, a lot of it is, it's very little inspiration. 99% sitting down trying to think of funny ideas. And I don't know really. It's just the way my mind works. And I think the thing is, having done it for so long, a bit like being an athlete, you probably train your legs to, run.
Yeah.
I've sort of trained my brain to
pick bits up.
Yeah, and I couldn't really do anything else now. I don't think I'd be absolutely useless trying to do a proper job.
I used to watch different people and then, like I said, adapt my own way of doing it. But when we interviewed Joe Pasquale, I didn't like to tell him that I copied his Elvis, where he gives a rose. He gives a rose to the pretty lady in the audience. So I done it as Elvis, which made it a little bit different. So
what does he do then? He
gives a rose to a lady in the audience, and then he walks up here singing this song, and then he sees someone prettier than her, so he goes and takes the rose off of this woman. Gives it to that one. Visually, when you do it, it's quite good, Yeah. So where did the idea of the big collars come up from?
It wasn't really an idea. When I started, I just wore what I thought looked good. I mean, I always had in mind that I would have an outfit, because around that time in the kind of alternative thing, the whole thing was against that. It was jeans and t-shirt, just turn up, it was like kind of, it was a kind of reaction to people like Des O'Connor and those guys used to put a suit or,
Yeah.
But I thought, oh no, you got to put like an outfit on. So I used to buy my clothes from Oxfam, and I had a suit. I had a black sort of dark suit, 60s suit, right? This is the 90s, so charity shops sold it was stuff from the 70s and 60s, right? So that stuff was cheap. So I wore a 60s suit, and then I had one white shirt which had a big collar.
Right.
And I found that when I wore it, a couple of times other comics would say, oh, that's good. That's a good look. Yeah, that's good. You should keep that. So, and then, because I only had one of them, once I started getting a bit of money, I had some made with bigger collars.
Ah, okay.
Just because I liked them, and people said, oh, yeah, that's good. I mean, it was just an accident. Just something that, it seems crazy to me that people remember me for that. And I had hair. When I first started, I had hair. And I thought, I got to shave this. You get to that point, don't you, where you got to shave it off. You're nearly there. And my agent said to me, I don't think you should do that. I don't think that's a very Harry Hill look.
Right.
Of course, it is the look, isn't it?
Yeah.
And, it's like a funny, it's just, I don't know. I mean, I was very lucky with that because it's very difficult, I think, for a bloke to find a look that is sort of memorable and that fits your kind of character. Most of the time you just got to wear a suit, really, haven't you?
We spoke to Mr. Motivator, and he said that it was his leotards that got him noticed.
Yeah, it was.
You've got to have an image. He said, I looked at all these people doing exercise videos and things, and they all mingled into each other. So he started wearing the
there have been times when people have said, oh, does he have to wear the big collar and all that?
Yeah.
And I've been tempted to change it, but actually you just got to stick out things,
Yeah.
You got to make...
I don't think you should change it.
No, definitely not.
No.
Definitely not.
So you've obviously done, I couldn't name all your TV programs because otherwise it could take just take up the whole of the podcast and the voiceovers you've done and all things like that. But I mean, my favourite is the Burp.
Yeah, well, that was my big success, really, wasn't it? Let's face it.
I can watch and all the reruns and all the time of that. It's my sense of humour, you see, seeing something that's made and then putting something funny to it, which is different.
And it's kind of a British sense of humour, I think. That show, we've got this. There is a kind of traditional, kind of silly, slightly surreal, sort of absurd, sarcastic. To me, it was always, when I was a kid, I used to go to the library and they would have Punch. Remember Punch? That kind of magazine.
That's right,
Kind of comical. I never read the art, the stuff, but there were a lot of cartoons in it. And remember at the back of it, it was a caption competition. where they'd have an old Punch cartoon and you have to put a caption to it. So basically you're seeing something and then you're coming up with a gag for what you're seeing. And that was pretty much what TV Burp was. You know, I'm seeing, I don't know, Peggy on EastEnders doing something, but I'm making a joke. I'm seeing something else in it.
Yeah.
You know? So, I mean, it's a sort of an old thing, but just the way, I don't think anyone had done it much in the way that we did it, you know? So, and I say we, because it wasn't just me. It was, you know, I had a team coming up with stuff.
Well, the thing is, when I look on Facebook, and say someone has a photograph taken and say that the light might be right up just above there.
Yeah.
And I'll put lovely hat and all things like that. That's my kind of sense of humour. Yeah. And that's the kind of sense of humour that the Burp was, wasn't it?
Yeah,
you know?
Spotting, you know, spotting a face in a handbag or something, you know. Yeah, crazy stuff like that.
I just think you can rewatch them over and over again. I just think they're brilliant.
Well, I don't do that, but it's funny. Every now and then I do see clips and I put them up on Instagram, but
there's a lot on Facebook at the moment.
Yeah, well, it's a funny thing with TV Burp is because it was so fast. You know, I was really kind of rigid about keeping the laughs coming, right? So it was like I wanted it to be fast paced, gag. You know, like when you go and see a comic, you go and see a good comic, you're laughing all the time. That's what I wanted. I didn't want any sort of bits where it was kind of, and so actually that works quite well for the modern, you know, generation, because it's that short attention span. You know, all the social media, they want quick things, don't they? And actually, TV Burp, you can just take a clip from TV Burp, and that is often just one laugh, bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
So they have, and there's a kind of, I think that generation of kids that grew up watching it. I get a lot of like 25-year-olds saying to me, "Oh, you were my childhood," or "I used to watch it with my nan," you know.
Yeah.
And those are the kids all on social media now. So it's quite a funny thing, really. I've really noticed it on this tour. They're kind of old enough to buy tickets. And so I get quite a few of those kids coming on, which is very pleasing. You know, it's a nice...
and you made characters out of certain... Heather.
And
Wagner and, all them. So...
Then you see character and...
that's right, yeah.
Wagbo. We had Wagbo on last night. Yeah. Not everyone remembers Wagbo.
No.
But it's... I was very lucky with that show. But I did it for maybe 10 years and I sort of did everything I could with it. You know, it got to a stage where I felt we were kind of repeating ourselves. You know, because the thing was like, EastEnders, the set of EastEnders, when we first started, we were spotting faces in there and all over the place, and you know, but they never changed the set, and we ran out of, you know what I mean? It was. Plus, I think shows started to get a bit more self-aware. So around that time, it was around the same time, Come Dine With Me started, right? So we were doing TV Burp, but we Come Dine With Me would have been great for us, except they've got a guy doing a voice, doing all the jokes that we would do.
Yeah.
So I think TV Burp maybe, I don't know if it influenced that, but it became, you know, voiceovers and stuff became a bit more self-aware, and so it slightly got harder to do. And now people don't all watch the same things. So in the 2000s, even in the 2000s, we were all still tuning into the same things. You know, EastEnders was massive. And even if you weren't watching EastEnders, you were kind of aware of the plots because it would be in the papers.
Yeah.
You know, who shot Phil, or, you know, those were big stories. So I think it would be harder to do now because there's not that communal viewing thing.
Are you still doing the Bake Off, the junior one?
Yeah, I'm doing it this summer, yeah. Yeah, it's the best job I've ever had, actually.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to write loads of stuff.
No.
I just turn up, and the kids are so funny.
Yeah.
I just react with the kids.
Some of them are so serious, you know, they've you know, and the others just haven't got a clue, really, have they?
No. But I think I see my job on that is to kind of, those ones that are all kind of serious, is to try and distract them and make sure they have some fun, because there's only one can win.
Yeah.
No, it's a nice gig there.
Is it right that you lived in Hong Kong?
Yeah,
when you was younger. Yeah, I was reading about that. Yeah, how was the language barrier?
I don't know. I mean, you know, they
never spoke to anyone.
It was weird. My parents, it was my dad's job. I don't really know what he did, but it was something in shipping. I don't know what he did. And so I grew up in rural Kent. And then when I was 14, so in the village I lived in, it was, quite a small village, there was a Chinese takeaway and a Londis. But that was pretty much it. And then my dad gets back from work and says, we're all going to Hong Kong. I thought, Jesus, really? And,
wow.
In the 70s, Hong Kong was like a punchline to a joke. Wasn't it? Was it made in Hong Kong?
Yeah.
It was all that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I had no idea what it was, what kind of, and it was a complete shock. Got off the plane in Hong Kong. I never even been on a plane, right? I'm one of 5 kids. My parents couldn't afford to go away, We get off the plane, it's like really hot and humid and it's full of, Chinese people. It's no surprise.
But you obviously went to an English school.
We went to an international school.
Oh, okay.
So it was a lot of Asian kids, Chinese kids, a lot of Australians, some English people. It was an English-speaking school, but it was very cosmopolitan. And, it was a real shock, and I hated it for 6 months. I really didn't like it, But then I started to really enjoy it, and I didn't really want to come back. Just got settled in, and we came back after 2 years. So, I never been back to Hong Kong. I think it's changed a lot since since the sort of Chinese took it back. But perhaps one day.
Your show was very energetic last night.
Yeah,
for a 60.
I have to move around a lot with my material. I have to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm lucky like that.
You don't need to do any exercise, do you? Because you're obviously burning all the calories doing your shows.
Yeah.
Have you got any aches and pains like a normal 60-year-old might have?
I have. I've never been one for exercise. I never liked it.
No.
I never do any. And you're right. I mean, I do a few stretches beforehand just because I've had that before where I've sort of, pulled a muscle or something. But
really?
Yeah, I'm kind of lucky. That's why I'm doing this tour, and it's like it's the biggest one I've ever done. It's 80 dates. And I'm thinking, I'm not sure if I'd do it again in the same way. I'm not sure I'll be able to.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? But yeah, you're right. I do put myself through it. But
You're enjoying it?
I am really enjoying it, actually, yeah. I never used to like touring.
And when does it run till?
We have a break in the summer, runs to the second week of June. And then there's a break. It starts back up in September just for a couple of weeks.
And obviously they can get on, people who's listening now who wants to get tickets can get on your website.
They can go and find out, harryhill.co.uk.
All good local theatres and things like that.
Yes.
I was looking up at some of the books that that you've written, but I never found an autobiography. Have you written an autobiography yet?
Yeah.
You have?
Like all comics, I wrote one in the pandemic.
Oh, right. I didn't find that, believe it or not. But,
yeah, it's called Fight.
Fight!
Yeah, it's a good read.
I'm going to have to look for that. That's all I ever read is autobiographies.
Yeah.
And especially of comedians doing what I do and things like that. So
yeah, sure.
So who would be your current favourite comedian, do you think?
At the moment?
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I mean, there's lots of really good comics, young comics. They're the kind of exciting ones to see from, I think, right? Because you kind of, you think you know everything, and then you see someone doing something really kind of original or interesting. There's a guy called Sam Campbell.
Mm-hmm.
He's Australian, actually. He's really funny. There's another guy called Freddie Meredith. There's lots of really good people.
Yeah.
I think the problem with TV at the moment is those kind of slightly odd comics aren't really getting a shout, and I'm not sure why that is.
I like Paul Smith, but you couldn't put him on TV.
Oh, Paul Smith, yeah. He's built up a kind of following from just by doing it live.
People fight in his show as well and all things like that. Yeah, they get scraps. And
we had a fight. There was a fight in one of my shows in the beginning of the tour over an armrest.
Oh,
someone was, that's my armrest. There's like a scuffle at the back of the theatre. Jesus, really? You don't expect it, do you, in a Harry Hill gig?
Wow. Do you have security?
No, there's no security in theatres, really.
No, it's not.
There's like old, normally they're like sort of 70-year-old volunteers.
That's right. There was
I'm afraid.
Yeah. There's a guy on the door last night saying, "Thank you for coming."
Oh, the old guy with the white hair, yeah.
Do you meet and greet afterwards, or?
I don't really. I mean, I've tried it a few times. I mean, like you say, by the end of the show, I am actually on the floor.
Yeah.
And a couple of times, my tour manager said, you could sell more programs. And I've done 3 or 4 times I've gone out and set up a table and signed, done selfies and stuff, which is great fun. It's really nice to meet the audience.
Yeah.
But I really feel it the next day.
Yeah.
You know?
You look lively this morning, though.
Yeah.
Considering you done your show last night for a 60-year-old.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
keep mentioning this.
Yeah. I mean, I'm careful. I used to, in the old days when I'd tour around, I used to tour around with Al Murray a lot, the pub.
Yeah.
Mm.
You ought to get him on this.
Yeah, I saw him at the Water Rats, because I go to the Water Rats to...
Russ Abbott said to me, you know Russ?
Yeah.
He said to me, he was talking about Eric Morecambe. He's talking about the Water Rats. I think is Russ a member?
Mm-hmm.
He said to me, Eric Morecambe said to me, whatever you do, don't get involved with the Water Rats. You'll never get your life back.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't do him any heart favours, really, because they thought he was the waiter.
Oh, Jimmy Tarbuck did. I had a white jacket with a red dicky bow, and Jimmy Tarbuck came up to him and said, "Excuse me, young man." He said, "Could you tell me where the toilets are?" I said, "Do you think I'm one of the waiters?" He went, "You are, aren't you?" I said, "No, I'm here amongst the crowd."
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, he's great. Really funny. Isn't it? I mean, I once did a benefit. I knew Ronnie Corbett a bit, and he organised a benefit at Mayday Hospital in Croydon. So, I'm a child of the 70s. And
Me too.
so Ronnie was like, a god to me. And on the bill, it's like Ronnie, Bruce Forsyth, Tarby, Rod Hull and Emu, Jasper Carrot. I was like, this is just
got to go.
Amazing. And I was on before Jim Tarbuck, and Tarby was on at the end. He comes on and he was really great, really funny. He's got brilliant timing, hasn't he?
Yeah. Mm.
And he goes, I've been talking to Harry Hill. He goes, through an interpreter. Yeah, and he's on tour, isn't he?
He is, yeah.
Yeah, we saw him, and
What's he doing?
He did a meet and greet. He's got a slideshow behind him, showing all pictures of the past.
Pictures of the past.
Yeah,
Pictures of the past.
No, they are.
All pictures are of the past.
I know, but all of what he did on TV,
Yeah.
and all things like that.
Oh right, yeah, snaps.
Yeah.
So it's sort of anecdotes, is it?
Yeah, and then our audience asked questions. But he did a meet and greet afterwards, and that's where we first met him. And then we went in his dressing room at Clacton, didn't we?
Yeah.
While he was on stage, nicked his phone. Yeah, I'm kind of tempted to go and see that.
I would. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So
he's the last one left, really, isn't he, of that generation?
He is.
Yeah.
Because he was so young when he started.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What do
well,
you
I made it a point to get round to try and see all these comedians before they died. Ken died.
Yeah.
I took my wife to see Ken died at Ipswich, and she's never forgiven me since.
5 hours later.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did do too long. I mean, but it wasn't just Ken, because he had other acts on, didn't he? His wife used to come on and play the flute, didn't she?
Yeah.
Or I saw her playing the piano and different things. So,
Yeah. There was a brilliant documentary on the other week. Have you seen it on iPlayer about Ken?
I did see it, yeah.
I thought it was brilliant.
Really
yeah.
Really good.
I got to meet him backstage.
Yeah, I met him a couple of times because I could never work out I was following him around in some ways. I was on tour and he was on tour. Everywhere I went, he'd been there the night before.
Mm.
I was there once at St David's Hall in Cardiff, and he'd been on the night before, and he'd gone on so long that they closed the car park and no one could get their car out. And everywhere he went, he was sold out, and it didn't seem to me that there was any adverts for his shows. I said to him, I said, how are you doing this, Ken? Who's promoting you? And he goes, her.
Yeah.
And it was Anne.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when I got to meet him, I noticed right in the corner of by his eyes here, he got black dots. And I had to ask him.
Red dots, isn't it?
Yeah, red dots.
Yeah.
And he told me they make the eyes look bigger when you...
Yeah.
That comes from the old musical.
I know. Yeah, well, that was the thing. He was like the missing link between musical and, modern. I mean, he's a really interesting character, I think, because unlike a lot of that generation, he did write a lot of his own jokes. I mean, he bought jokes as well, but, and if you look at his act now, it's a really kind of modern thing he was doing. It's great, I mean, people think I'm sort of crazy, but actually, you look at Ken Dodd, with the crazy hair, the teeth, the tickling sticks, the diddy men, it's nuts.
Yeah.
And so kind of, I saw him at the Palladium after his court case. Remember?
Right, yeah.
And one of his, of course, one of his kind of ameliorating factors was the fact he had a heart condition.
Right.
Remember?
Yeah.
And he comes on at the Palladium, he's got a great big bass drum. Happiness. I'm thinking, there's nothing wrong with your heart, mate. But it was really exciting, and just that, the band, and he comes on and it is that, that old thing of start with a song, finish on a song. It was he would put on a proper show, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And you never knew when it was going to end. So
no, I mean, it was, for my money, it was far too, ridiculous.
You
I don't
actually
know what
got
that was about.
tired of laughing in the end because it was a laugh a minute, and in the end, you got fed up with it.
Well, my tour manager, he took his son to see him down in the southwest somewhere, and after 2 hours, his son, who was about 13 or something, turns to him and says, "I've had enough, Dad." Right? So he drives him home, drives back, and he still walks back in and takes his seat again, watches the rest of the show.
Harry, I've got to ask you about your nuts.
Uh-huh.
It's the elephant in the room. Your nuts. You actually did sell nuts, didn't you?
Very briefly, for
Harry's
fair
nuts.
trade. Harry's nuts, yeah. But it didn't go. They didn't take off. Yeah, you can't get them now. Actually, someone bought a packet of them for me to sign the other week.
Really?
Yeah, 10-year-old packet of nuts.
Wow. Yeah, no, I read about it.
Yeah, I got involved with fair trade, and I went to Malawi and visited the peanut growers. And I mean, there's huge companies that produce peanuts, but in Malawi, they've all got about an acre that they grow there, and so they couldn't sell them. But if they all clubbed together, they could sell them, and that's what the fair trade thing was doing, really. And so it was an idea to start up a peanut line. Yeah.
I was reading that you're because we like to sort of bring back to medical things and all things that was mentioned about the doctor, and I have to read this. Because you're actually patron of the action Duchenne, yes.
Duchenne,
yeah. So what do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it's an awful genetic disease. It affects young men. It's a muscle wasting disease, and so these boys end up in wheelchairs, and life expectancy isn't what you'd like. And I had a friend, the guy who used to do all the graphics for Andy, his son had it and died, unfortunately. And I got involved through that. I did a thing at his funeral, and it's a very difficult thing, and there's no cure for it, but there's kind of hope in the kind of gene therapy and modification. The difficulty with it is it's not one gene. It's not like necessarily cystic fibrosis or something where it's one identifiable thing.
Yeah,
it's a kind of cluster of things. So it's
well, it's nice you're making that.
Well, I don't do much. I mean, you can always do more. I should do more, really. But
well, you're a busy man.
Yes, I'm too busy.
Yeah.
Too busy to help young men in wheelchairs.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I've been shifting about, Harry, because
here we go. He's got a joke.
I got the
How do you just?
I got the pile cream mixed up with the brill cream, and I've got the brill cream bounce. You can have that one for nothing.
Yeah. Better than the other one you was going to say. Oh, tell Harry about the guy we met outside.
Oh no.
Oh, there's this old boy, right, and he's walking up and down, we're sitting on a bench, and then he had to come up to us. He taps me on the shoulder. He said, "Excuse me," he says, "I sit in that seat every single day." So I said, "You're more than welcome." So we shuffled up, and he said, "So what are you doing here then?" I said, "We're going to meet Harry Hill." He went, "Oh, that fucking lunatic." Didn't he? I said, "You know him then?" Bless him. Just the way he came out with it, an old Suffolk boy, a real old Suffolk boy.
Yeah.
So...
yeah, I mean, you've filled a dream really for us today, because everybody asks us when they see the title of our podcast, Tom Dick.
Yeah, and Harry.
Where's Harry? That's
Oh.
always the question.
Yeah.
Right? And you thought that.
No, I hadn't.
So today we've filled that spot.
We have.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
we
been
do a
brilliant.
live every now and again. And
Oh, do you?
every other, where's Harry? Where's Harry? And oh God.
Yeah.
But,
But the name comes from who's sick. Obviously, that's Roman Cockney slang. That's how we come up with it.
Yeah.
Who's
yeah.
Tom and Dick?
He's a bit Tom and Dick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where we got the title from.
that's when I was in hospital, nearly died
Yeah.
with me cancer.
Yeah.
And I had to stop singing. And he said, "What are you going to do?" He said, "Let's do a podcast."
Yeah.
And little did we
I
realise.
thought we'd only do about 2 or 3.
Yeah.
2
Yeah.
years later, he's still going.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's great. That's great.
It's good, yeah.
No, it's been good. And thank you very much for
No, my pleasure.
No, thanks,
Offering
Harry.
to-
It's,
come on for us.
Been
And
great.
We've been trying for a while, haven't we?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
'Cause
not
first
sure
of-
I offered.
I bet you're glad
Well,
you
we were
did it now.
supposed to do it. We were supposed to do it, and then you took a turn for the worse.
I know.
didn't you?
And just to let people know, I've never publicised it. I kept it private. Harry sent me a really private message to say, get well. So perhaps I might put it on Facebook now or something like that.
Whatever you want.
With your permission.
but it's good to see you. And good
Yeah.
to see you looking so well.
Yeah, and
Thanks
thank
very
you,
much.
Harry.
Thanks
Harry.
for coming on.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks a lot.
A walk down memory lane.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant.
You've been listening to the Who's Tom and Dick podcast with your hosts, Martin Weavers and Patrick Mortimer. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite streaming platform. New episodes are available every Friday. Thanks for tuning in.